Okay, so the way this thing comes apart, it's actually pretty simple. You first want to pull out these knobs on the front, and this one as well. And then I always like to keep my screws, my knobs, and the parts that I'm working on in like a container or a box or something, just so I don't lose them. And I put them off to the side. And then there's screws here, 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 and here. And then that front panel will lift off. You'll need to take the front panel off as well as the bottom to get that side panel where the power supply is at. So unscrew here. And then this top piece will just pull straight up and off. At least it should. Okay, actually the back part needs to come off as well. And then you just need to take off 4 screws here, 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 and it looks like I might have already taken off 1 screw there. And the power cord just loops through this little hole in the bottom here. Okay, and then set that off in a safe location. And now this top piece should just come right off. Just pull straight off. There we go. And put that in a safe location as well. Okay, now what we want to get to is this section here. This is where the main power supply is going to be for this unit. And the side panel just has 2 screws, and then it pulls straight off once you take those screws out. Okay, so that's number 1. And number 2. What are you hanging on? And to get to the power supplies, the power supply board is on these hinges here, and it's just secured down with this 1 screw. So you take the screw off, and then the power supply board will just fold down. And then there's the power supply right there. So I will go ahead and pull that out. You can see, maybe you can see, these two sections right here are where the filter capacitors are intended to go. You can see that they marked on the board which end is positive, which end is negative. So all I got to do is get the capacitors out here and put them in their respective positions there. Okay, so yeah, the new filter capacitors are installed, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this board up, and then we will see if the power supply is working. So I need to get this board bolted back down. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me reposition the camera here. There is a notch when you're realigning the board. There's a notch right here. You still can't see it. So there's a notch right there in the middle that's protruding out. The edge of this card has a matching notch, and it has to go inside that notch on the metal protrusion there. So you need to align that back up, and then we'll just seat right back in there. Okay, then I need to get my screw, and then I need to bolt it back down. Okay, it's going in now. Okay, then we fold that back up, and then we bolt it back down. Okay, so I'm going to test the power supply now. So now that I got everything, well, I got all the circuit boards bolted back down, secured back down. I'm going to plug this in, just make sure my transformer, yeah, it's plugged in. Okay, so I'll plug this back in, and then I will fire this thing up, and we'll see if if the power supply works or if it goes up in smoke. Okay, so turn that on. Looks like I got it in right. Nothing going boom. I don't want no booms. Well, I think we're good. Of course, really should test the voltages that this thing's outputting, but otherwise it seems to be lighting up. Not that that necessarily means much. But I think because I checked and I made sure that the polarities were correct when I put them in. So I don't suspect that this thing's going to have any other problems like exploding capacitors or anything of that nature. Of course, watch me eat my words, but you know how it goes. Okay, so shut this off. So next I'm going to finish up, because I already kind of recapped the audio amplifier board in this thing somewhat before I started this video. So I'm going to turn this thing on its back, and then I'll continue the recap of the audio circuit on this VCR. Okay, so the way you get to the audio circuit on this VCR is you flip it over, and you take off all of these screws that are on the unit. So we'll take those off now. Now when you take these screws off, this plate's not exactly going to just fall right off. You'll need to pull it. You'll need to pull it kind of straight back and off. I'll show you in a second. But it's going to kind of bind up a little bit on these feet. I'm not sure if these feet were glued on or something, but I've tried to take the screws out and those feet are just stuck on there. So it might be a different mileage with your VCR, I don't know. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about when we take this bottom plate off. As you can see, these feet are stuck on. Yeah, I know the bolt is still in, but it's going to be much the same story if I take the bolts out. And I'm missing a screw. Looks like I overlooked one. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about when I take this thing out. You're just going to pull on it a little bit, and it will eventually come out. And again, put this in a safe spot. Okay, Okay, so this is what the inside, well, the underneath side of this VCR looks like. So to get to these boards, what you do is you unscrew these screws here, 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 and here. And the board will just, these two will just kind of fold out like this. And then the audio board is going to be in this section down here. Okay, so all the screws are out now. And as you can see, it kind of just naturally springs forward a little bit. But it pivots out. Okay, I'm missing one screw. But you can still see what I'm saying, though, that it's at the board kind of pivots outwards, and then you can see the inner... There's more boards underneath this that you'll be able to access. Okay, and you see it pulls right out. And there's the audio circuit right here that we need to finish working on. So as you can see, I got a few capacitors replaced in it already. But there's still a lot of original capacitors on here. Some of them test okay, but some of them test high ESR as well. Yeah, like those 10 microfarad ones tested high ESR when I checked them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll start the recap process on it now. One thing I forgot to mention, there's a shield that goes over the audio circuit, the audio chip, and that'll need to be soldered back in before I completely wrap this up. And the shield is now back installed. Okay, so I've been running this thing for about 15 minutes now, and the audio seems to be okay. However, like I was saying before, there's still some video issues. I think you can kind of see it, what I'm talking about here. The black is really noisy, but there's also color issues as well, color demod issues. especially with some of the brighter colors. And a few other issues I forgot to mention. You don't see it here, but there is a stuck digit. There you can see it. That digit is stuck on, and I think the IC that controls this clock has failed on one of the segments. I'm not entirely sure of that just yet, but I'll check into that one a little bit later. And another thing too, this is a VHF tuner. The light apparently seems to be burned out on it, but the UHF is fine. But yeah, aside from that, it seems like I've got the audio issue fixed. I just need to look at the video boards now. I hope you enjoyed this little video about with the repair that I did on the well, I hope you enjoyed this video. As you can see, that there's still more work that needs to be done on that VCR. I'll be checking into the video circuit, the chroma circuit, especially the chroma D mod. But I'll be checking into luminance as well. I think I may need to clean the heads on it, the video heads, since those haven't been cleaned anyway. It'd be a good idea to go through and clean those, clean the audio heads. I still haven't tested the record on there just yet too. I'll need to do that as well. But this is my first time working on a VCR of this vintage, so if you have any tips or tricks or recommendations, please feel free to let me know. One more thing I want to say too, especially about recapping. Replacing the capacitors is not the end-all, be-all of electronics repair. Sometimes it'll fix the issue, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what the issue is. I knew that it was bad capacitors when I first heard it because I know what bad capacitors sound like. They have a specific kind of hiss and crackle and pop. The audio comes in and out, it gets distorted. So I knew from the bat what it was, and it was those failed capacitors. Like I said, I ran the tape recorder for about 15 minutes. Usually if there's going to be any major problems with it, or if that didn't fix the issue, it would have shown up during that test. And the audio sounds okay now, so I'm pretty convinced at this point that the audio section is taken care of. I just need to look at the video section next. But as always, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. I'm opening up a Patreon here pretty soon too, if you want to donate to that. That would be greatly appreciated. And until next time, goodbye.